record. We're going to get going because we got a lot of questions, people. A lot of questions. I'm proud of everyone for sending in questions. So
Great
thank you.
Really good question.
Yeah, so we're going to get going. And I'm going to, so mute yourself if you're not muted. I will also congratulate Kristen Heitima for hitting consultant this past week if she gets back on, I'll shout her out. But during the Rapid City socials. So she hit consultant. I'm super proud of her. So good. Way to go, Kristen. Socials are coming to a city near you. And if they're not, drive there. We've done that many a time. So, yes, let's get started. And if you have any launch parties coming up, put them in the chat just while we're sitting here. I would love to see any launch parties. I know, like, Heidi and Brian, you have a bunch coming up. You could also just post it in a separate post if you want, in Everyday Rockstars or whatever. But put them in the chat if you have them. So we're just going to start with these questions. We're
going to try to get
through everything we can get. And some of them, I know there are great resources too. So we may defer to a resource that I might say we can post, somewhere else. But if your question isn't answered to the full extent that you want it answered, just come talk to us. We can do that. We can totally do more questions later. So I love that it's fun to hear what people have. So I'm going to start just with, okay. So Andy Sawyer asked, how do you reconcile the idea of generating a list? See, I wanted to read it exactly because it was a good question. How do you reconcile the idea of generating a list in your life with the idea that most successful network marketers end up partnering with people they didn't know before? Is it best to just present the opportunity over and over again and ask for referrals? I would argue that you are going to create a team of people, a huge organization of people where you know some of them, but they're not going to be the majority of the people that you know by the time you create this awesome, amazing network. Typically, that's typically what I see. So what I mean by that is on this call, I knew Aaron and Drew before. I knew Barbie before. That might be it, you guys. And so, but it's got to start with someone. It's got to start somewhere. So you're going to find the people in your life who are going to say yes to you, and it's going to feel like you're rubbing two rocks together to create a spark. I know I've said that before. Some people are going to say yes. Some people are going to return. Some people are going to, turn off their auto ships. Some people are going to do every which thing that you've ever imagined. But that doesn't mean that you withhold the idea of sharing the gift of Isagenix with them. Because you want to know what? I left that first ICU with a list of 80, 90 people. I literally found my notes recently from my very first ICU, and I was just looking through them. 80 to 90 people on a list that I made right there, and I didn't want to withhold Isagenix from any of them. And a lot of them are product users now. I mean, over 5 years, even, if they're not calling into Monday Night Calls, that doesn't mean it's been beneficial to share that with them. So I would just make sure that, you're thinking about, and I don't know, the whole notion that successful network marketers work with people that they didn't know before. Is that a real thing that people don't? Because I would argue that people do it's relationship or referral marketing. If you have trust with someone and they're looking for what you have, part of it is just having that trusting relationship. So, but when you think about going pro, which Barbie and I were talking about over lunch, you're going to think about presenting to everyone, and that some people will and some people will not.
And
so
part of that looks like too is, the people that were in our lives before don't really dream to build this big with us. Like Alice was saying, doesn't mean you don't show it to them, but there's kind of that 85% of people, 15% of people, 5% of people who really want to go with it. And you want to get out and talk to as many people as you can, like you were saying, and you're building your network and asking for referrals along the way. Some will, some won't, and some will bring some people into your life that'll change your life and change your organization. So I wouldn't want to, miss lifting up that one rock to find that big stack of money, like Lynn Hagedorn says. If I told you there was a $10,000 check in your backyard, but it was under this big pile of rocks, would you not pick up and look under every single rock? Would it not be worth your time to do that? Brian, that's something.
Oh, Brian.
I just think a good way to think about this, Andy, and I think I know where you're hung up a little bit. An amazing way to think about it is it's not about your network. It's about the network of every single person in your network. So imagine the exponential expanse of everyone's network. Like, you probably don't know 80% of the people that each of the people you know knows. You know what I mean? So when you can start blowing that up and think of it in those terms, then you probably do end up linking arms with someone you didn't know before, but it was through the linking of networks.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. That's a great point. And asking for referrals. So you said, is it best to do this or this? I think it's both. And I think it also just shows the beauty of our compensation plan, because a lot of companies, most compensation plans, I actually don't know another one where you get 100% benefit of the BV, unlimited depth through this. So that's just where you really get to build this with the people that you know, with the people you don't know. It's yes and it's both, right? Yeah. So, okay, cool.
We're yes and both people.
Yes and both. Hopefully that's helpful. Next question. Let's talk about gym booth setups. So Teresa asked about setting up booths at gyms. And if anyone has had any really successful ones, I would love for you to jump in and share. I would say, you know, like for real, raise your hand if you have, and we can talk about it. Looks like Oliver's raising his hand. Is that true? We have, so Megan Kruger used to build pretty big. She built to executive. She built a really solid business. And we would set up in her gym, and we would set up before and after boot camp sessions. And we did hydrate, we would set up hydrate, we'd set up bars. We'd put out before and afters, just a few visuals for people to look at. I think it goes back to the stories in the before and afters. But people in the gym are only going to stop by for 5 minutes maybe. So you get them to try some hydrate, you try some power or recover, cut up some bars, and try to make those connections. And then the main other thing that I would do there is we'd make sure that we're asking people if they would like to be added to our private product page to check it out. So adding people to Everyday Health right there. Literally get out my phone, friend them. So now they're seeing my posts. We're staying in contact. I've had some come to Super Saturday because of that. Add them to Everyday, the product group that we use. Anything else?
Yeah, no, I think with the gym thing, I think it's extremely rare to have like an open house at a gym, have somebody try a bar and some power and be ready to sign up with their value pack right there. Like, if you're going in with the expectation that you're trying to grow your network and grow the amount of exposure you can give to these people, then I think that's how I would frame that in my mind to set it up as getting that relationship going.
Heidi?
I don't know where you're at, Teresa, like in the process. Like, I don't know if they've already said yes, but Eunice and I were just talking about this today. I feel like if you're going to approach a gym or an instructor, rather than saying, can I set up a table after a class or in your gym, ask them if you can collaborate on an event. Then it's about you guys working together and you mutually helping each other, rather than you just like, I want to have a table at your gym, and basically trying to just use what they've already built to try to gain new customers. Instead, you're saying like, I'll invite all of my people so they get exposed to your gym, and you can bring some of your people and expose them to my products. Like, there's mutually beneficial, relationship going there, rather than, thank you, rather than just having a table.
Yep. You always want to be thinking,
how can you add value
to like, what's in it for them? And if you can show them a way that they're going to benefit somehow, and make it almost hard for them to say no.
That's great. Super good advice. And yeah, keep it simple. I like what Holly said. Keep it simple at the gym. And it's more about making those connections that then will last long term, is what I have found. So it's consistency and relationships, which Teresa, you got that skill down. So yay.
Does that help?
Okay, let's talk about planning events and getting people there. Jill had. It's sort of similar. Because Jill, you were talking about planning events, so actual sip and samples, launch parties, that sort of a thing, not necessarily core for events. Okay, so I would say my advice on this, the most successful thing that we have done with this is do consistent every month, and or then we actually upped them to every other week. We called them Wellness Wednesdays, and we did them in Hopkins, Minnesota, and we held them rain or shine, 0 people, 50 people. I mean, we had a time where we filled that room with at least 40 people, and it was crazy. And then we had many nights where 0 people showed up. But we booked them all out in advance, and we didn't give ourselves the option to cancel. We didn't say, oh, we'll get to booking the next one. We booked them monthly, and Barbie and Holly and Naomi, and people were we all partnered together, and it was so fun. And Drew and Aaron came to that, right? And Rebecca and Amanda Bouvet and, various people I know on here. And it was just so cool to always have the next one that you could invite people to. So my best advice is consistently hold them and invite. Personal messages is everything. So I don't know, Aaron or Drew, you've had great ones. Heidi and Brian, you've had great ones. I don't know if anyone else.
I think something else to think about is there's not a magic formula where this type of launch party is going to be the one that's going to get people there, or this type of sample. Like, make it fun for you and who you're trying to get there. Like, if it's going to be a wine and cheese night with the ladies, and that's kind of what you want to do, great, make it fun like that. If you want to do a workout one, I know Kelly Scoob one time had a drumstick class, tap on your ground, whatever that was, and she had ladies who were into that, and she kind of focused more on the performance line and stuff.
Pound.
She just kept it fun. Pound, thank you. But just make it fun for you. Make it something when you're putting it together. Like, think, would I enjoy going to this? Like, is this something that would appeal to me? Or does this feel like a chore? And if it feels like fun to you, then when you're inviting people, you want them to be there to have fun and learn a little bit and connect. That would be the one piece of advice I would have. If anybody else has something.
No, I love that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and you'll notice different vibes. Hop around. Like, come to one of Drew and Aaron's. Their vibe is super chill, super casual. It's a party. The people that went to it had fun, and then they're naturally want to tell their people about the next one. Like, that's just one example of one that was recent, You leave there feeling like these people are authentic and you trust them and you want to be a part of their gang.
Yep, and there's change. Like, it started one way,
yeah,
and it was like, that doesn't feel like it's natural enough. Okay, we're going to feel free to change it and have fun with it.
Totally. Okay.
The second part of your question was how to get people there. And I think Allison and Jake kind of touched on this about like sending the personal invites. Like, don't mass add people to your event. Like, create an event on Facebook, but send everybody individual messages, because how many little parties have each of us been added to? Like, I can't even count how many nail parties or LuLaRoe parties. This is different. You want to let people know that you thought about them, and that's why you want to see if they're open to coming to this, and then follow up and say, oh, okay, I'll add you to the event so you can, check it out and see where it is and whatnot. So always send people individual messages and always follow up with people. So post in the event, like, topics and different things, like talk about like, the side effects of a toxic body, cravings, not sleeping well, things like that, because those are the symptoms that people are thinking, and that will make them curious to come check out. Post before and afters, and like always make sure that you have activity going on in the Facebook event, and also following up with people, asking, making sure that they can come. Yeah, sending them a quick message, saying that you're looking forward to seeing them. Like, that's how you get responses, and that's how you get people to show up. I mean, I know that there's a podcast where somebody asks everybody to bring ice so that they feel like they're needed there. So, I mean, you can ask people to bring something. I mean, something as silly as ice, but I think the follow-up is key in getting people to attend.
Yeah, totally. Agree, 100%. That's good. Okay, so let's talk about following up with people, since you're talking about that, who have ghosted you on multiple social media sources. So, Teresa, when you're talking about this, are you saying they asked for info and now they're ghosting you?
I think it's more or less me reaching out to them for the first time after catching up, and then them not responding, and then me, like, say it's on Facebook Messenger, and then me messaging them on Instagram story, and then they'll like maybe say one or two things, but then they'll never get back to the Facebook message, I guess.
Totally. So, and this, Katie, just so you know, this goes along with Greg's question a little bit. He, in the comments, he said they see it, but they don't write back. How do you go about reaching out to people? I will say, people are very, very busy. And people, like, this is the way I think about it. People are busy, and this might be top of mind for you and your priority. This is not a priority for a lot of people, especially unless they have this compelling reason for it to be a priority for them. That doesn't mean that they don't want it, and that doesn't mean that they're not going to. But what I really do like the 2x2, which I think Laura Stevens invented, which is, reach out after 48 hours and do that twice. And I oftentimes switch it to voice, and they will listen to the voice, and they'll, send it out. They'll listen to the voice. Often get back to you, especially if you have the posture of like, hey, if this isn't, someone told me to say, hey, if this isn't for you, like, that's okay, that's cool. Can you just let me know so I stop, inviting you to this? I really think you'd like it. But it's like, if you almost let them off the hook, a lot of times they'll come back and be like, no, actually, I do really want the info. Let me know, I've been busy. Get back to me in June, I've had people tell me. Or, it does take a lot of follow-ups. And Katie, your question about bugging them, the truth is most people say yes after 5 to 7 follow-ups. And so it does take, someone called Susan Sly 22 times to get her to say yes. She now makes over $1 million a year in Isagenix. She's glad she said yes. It just took a while. And so you have to get yourself out of the equation of being worried about what they might think or worried that you're bugging them. 1 or 2 times you're not bugging them, and some people, it might not be for them, but they can tell you that. You can, say like, if this isn't for you, let me know. I've had people flat out be like, no, thank you, not interested. And I'm like, great, that's fine. And then switch the topic. And they even come back in a roll sometimes. The key is consistency. The key is, 48 hours, and then wait 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks, and then just kind of go on cycle of staying in relationship. There's no magic formula here either.
And it's kind of a no story, no problem, because Allison kind of, alluded to it. Like, if you they saw it and you're waiting for those little dots to come up, like and you're like, oh my God, they're not doing it. And then they didn't do it for a whole day. Like, you don't know what's going on in their life. It's not like they're totally avoiding you. And like you said, like, give them permission to say no. Some people just flat out don't want to tell you no. And it's easier for them to just not respond and hope you go away.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, getting, like, not answering your phone calls if it's the solicitor number that you saved in a bunch of times. It's just easier not to answer and say no. It's just to not answer the call. So just give them permission, like, hey, is it okay if I keep asking you about this? Like, if it's not for you right now, that's okay. And then reach back and keep in communication with them. Reach out about a cool post they had, or if you want to get together just for a drink, or complain about the Vikings being a terrible football team or a terrible city with terrible fans who can't win. Like, whatever it is that you connect with people on.
And some of them just need to watch. Some of them need more time. Heidi, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm all about follow-up and not
you're the queen.
Attaching a story to it. I will invite people. I'll send messages like 7, 8 times with no response, and suddenly they'll be like, hey, I never check Facebook Messenger. Here's my phone number. Give me a call. Like, I can tell you many, many stories like that. And if someone's expressed interest, I'll have the tighter follow-up, and then I don't do like every 2 weeks, because then I think that is when you start to potentially be annoying if you're following up every 2 weeks consistently. Like, there are some people that I'll bump out like 4 months or 6 months. And if I've invited them to 2 things and they haven't said anything to me, then maybe I'll just send them a birthday message when their birthday's up, or comment on their page. Sometimes when I have people for follow-up and I've sent them several messages and they haven't responded, I will just love on them, like, publicly on their page so that they think of me, but I'm not like directly asking them about Isagenix. And I found lately too, like, if you feel like you've been inviting to a lot of things, just really engaging in conversation, a lot of people will start talking then. And then there was something else I was going to say. No, I forgot it. Maybe I'll think of it later.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That Heidi's the queen of follow-ups. Heidi, honestly, she really is. So let's see what she says. The 2x2 is 2 days twice, and then go to a 2-week cycle twice, and then go to every 2 months. So if that feels right, that's great. If not, that's okay. Yes, Heidi.
I know what it was. So I love the giving permission. I like with all of our launch parties coming up, there's people that I've, invited to events 2 years ago and then 6 months ago and then 3 months ago. And I've like literally in my messages the past week, I've said, hey, I know I've been inviting you to a lot of things, and I'm hoping that maybe one time you'll see it in time and be able to come. But if they're getting annoying and I'm bugging you, please let me know. Like, that's almost verbatim what I say in my messages. So I give them that permission. And if they don't tell me to stop, then I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. You're giving them an out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying, if you don't want me to do this, tell me.
Yeah. And I mean, you have something that could be amazing for them, and maybe it's just timing too. Like maybe they just, that's okay. So good. Okay. Good. Hopefully that's helpful. So let's go to the 11-day versus the value pack. So Lisa Campbell asked, she said on the ISA All-Star podcast, they were talking about recommending people start with an 11-day and then layer in products after that. And I know that various people will have various opinions on this. So there is not one right answer, and doing what feels good to you, I think, is probably the right answer, especially as you're growing in your skills as a network marketer. I like to show people the absolute best and tell them my best recommendation, very passionately explain why I think it's my best recommendation, but then always meet them where they're at. So there are people on this call that enrolled with 1 canister of shakes that are now building a big business. Barbie, for example. But that doesn't always happen. Are you really setting someone up for success when they order 1 canister of shakes? I truly can say I don't really think you're setting them up for success. Was that Barbie's style of shopping and comfort level? Yes. She wanted to make sure she liked it. She knows that she has it used to be a picky eater. So it's okay. My first 8 enrollments probably, you guys, were shake and cleanse packs. Like, let's be real. That's one of my biggest failures, but you learn from it. And so I would say getting products in people's body and bringing them along this journey and having them see the community and at least getting on like 1 to 2 shakes a day, I think is key. Are you doing them the best service by getting them on the value pack? Yes. Some people probably would wait for them to collect that money. And, there is the truth. Like, if you were to lose your iPhone tomorrow, you would go find $600 to $1,000 to replace it. People find money for things they find value in. So make sure you're presenting the value in the value pack, but also recognize that that's not some people's shopping style. That would be my recommendation. ISA All-Stars, yes, 2011. It was that Peter Greenlaw one, Heidi.
Right. So I just don't think back in 2011, they maybe didn't even have the value pack then, and it sure didn't look like it does now. So I just think keep that perspective in mind in that podcast. There's tons of value in that podcast, but the packs just look different then too. So
yeah, that's a great point. I don't even think they had ISA Delights, and they certainly did not have e-shots back in 2011. So, and the 11-day is actually the 9-day plus 2 shake days on the front end. It's the same thing. When they say 11-day, it's called the 9-day cleanse.
Yeah, and if people are interested in that kind of thing, I just look at that as being roughly half the cost of a basic 30-day. And if you're doubling the 11-day, you're missing out on all this extra. Like it doesn't make any. But if somebody's worried about money, I would rather them go with the basic 30-day because otherwise they're overpaying.
They will actually save more money with a basic 30-day than a 9-day because they're getting 11 days of products. They're paying way more per day. Yep. Yes. So if they're looking to save money, the basic 30 is a better deal. And that, I definitely tell people that. I pretty much 30 days, the minimum I do now in truth, or the premium or the value pack. The Power Hour one, Jill, we have a call on that Heidi and Brian actually did. I'll post it again in the group about how to structure a Power Hour. So I'm going to post that recording for you guys to watch. And honestly, I don't have something after 9:30, so I can stay on if anyone wants to talk, but we can end and then finish some of the questions. The Plan app is a great app for creating a grid and pushing it to Instagram. And again, I can show I use it now. I love it because if you're feeling the creative juices flow, PLANN, you actually can create your grid. These are not posted yet, but it's a grid, and you can type out your posts when you're feeling creative, and then you do still have to push them to Instagram, but at least you have them all laid out so you can kind of see your message, how you want it to lay. And you can set reminders so then you can post them. So I can also, Jill, go over that with you or anyone else. Plann, Plann is the app. International market. So Aaron asked about how do you get into international, and honestly, you guys, it's the same way that you would get into Canada or California, or the same way we're in Arizona. Like, I don't know anyone in Arizona, but I knew Holly, who knew Gretchen, who knew Chelsea, who knew Danny in South Dakota. Like, we have people ordering now in Taiwan, Australia, Canada, and the UK, like, pretty religiously every month. I will say we don't have like any big builders in those markets yet. We had an expat living in Taiwan, but it's really like start local and grow global is the way I've thought about it. If you have contacts, which I know you guys do over there, I would certainly reach out and, tell them like this is something in their market. And we have contacts at headquarters of people in the international market. Dave McManus has like Southeast Asia. We can connect them to him so that they feel like super connected and special to corporate. Same thing in the UK. Same thing, so.
Because there are some things that are going to be different as far as products that are available and pricing and things. So you want to be careful before you start going, oh, we'll get you the value pack with all this. Like, it might not look the same in London or, in Taiwan. It's going to look a little different. So before you get like that far down the road, just make sure you reach out and figure that out.
Yeah. So, but that's my thought process behind it. And international was always on my radar. It still is. But I like Heidi and Brian's thing. You can search your friends who live internationally. You never know. And ask for referrals there. I have a girl in Singapore, and I've asked her, like, who do you know? Who do you know? And she has yet to give me a name, but maybe she will. She can. Okay, and then I'm going to do Katie Matthews, and then we'll go into one final topic. So Katie said, when you have an off day and you want to eat, how did you word this, Katie? I want to do it justice.
It was funny.
Do you ever have any days where you just want to eat jelly beans and watch Grey's Anatomy and not message people? Do you push through, or do you have an off day and get back tomorrow? Asking for a friend. Okay, my first advice, I appreciate your honesty. My first advice would be to read The Slight Edge. I don't know if anyone else, other people can jump in with their advice. The Slight Edge is about habits, and that every activity that you're doing is either like helping you, move up the growth curve, because I think this business is done a little bit over time matters way more than a lot and then stop, and then a lot and then stop. So if you got to find your groove where you're touching it every day. Most Ice millionaires will say that they touch their business every day for a period of time. That said, I want you to find the joy in doing your business. And like, if you're not finding the joy, then maybe that day is listen to a podcast while you're driving or in the shower. Maybe that day is filling your cup or filling the cup of 3 other people. Or maybe it's going to yoga and meditating and grounding yourself back on your why. I've had days like that. I know many people on this call have had days like that, but it's like, it shouldn't feel like a have to work. I feel like, Lori Sherman speaks very well about like, you get to, and you should feel like if you're not feeling like, you want to, then I would revisit your why and the products and the business and the vision, your vision, and like what feels amazing. I will say that people, you can read Emily Vavra, the difference between, the people who get there. She will say like, be obsessed even on the days when you don't want to. Some days talking to others is just real hard. Do a podcast, book, mindset, exercise, everyday minimum. I agree. I agree with the difference between the people, the difference between good and great is, that slight edge, which you'll read about in the book, but it is like doing things even long after the feeling has passed. Like, there is an aspect of that. Doing things long after the feeling has passed. Giving yourself grace and recognizing not every day is going to feel great, but digging deep to figure out, what it is you're going to do that day and why. Does someone else have an opinion on that? I don't want to.
I would add one quick little nugget that, like, on the days that I don't want to do something, I just tell myself, like, I'll literally set a timer and say, okay, 15 minutes of just responding to messages that are already in my inbox, or sending out birthday messages, or pouring love in other people. Like, I just give myself a very small period of time and make it a very easy task. And usually after that 15 minutes, I already feel so much better. And like, all of a sudden people are popping up into my head that I need to follow up with, or I see a post that someone makes that I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to reach out to them and like talk to them about Isagenix. So it's like, once you're in action, it's easier to stay in action. And if you give yourself that permission to have a very small window first, it usually will build on itself.
100% agree with that. I mean, that has happened to me many times. Action breeds action. It makes you want to do more. So staying in that action, and it just all compounds on each other a little bit over time. Good advice, Heidi. Okay, and we can always talk about more of that too. Okay, last question that we got, and if you need to hop off, that's cool. We totally get that. The last question we got was, what are the biggest risks you've taken and the biggest failures you've had and what you've learned? Oh, that's deep. It's good though, you guys. Okay, so I will just, so to me, the biggest risks we've taken, and Jake and I kind of talked about it in advance. One is for sure financial risk. So I went back and looked, you guys, and sometimes I've always treated this like a business, and businesses have an amount of money that you invest in them, right? And that first year, our expenses added up to $12,000 and maybe that sounds like a lot, maybe it sounds like a little, I don't know, but between travel and between events and between me paying enrollments for those Shake and Cleanse packs that I was enrolling, because I was real good back then. No, I mean, like, you guys, that's just telling you, like, mistakes that you make, right? Pay $30 and get a $10 PIB. Who wouldn't think that's a good idea? And then, other risks, getting people's ICU tickets for Minneapolis. I mean, but these aren't all risks that didn't pay off. A lot of these paid off. We paid $12,000. We made $24,000 that year. We made, so I mean, that's just being super transparent. But I think a lot of people are not really even willing to start to put in, like, the money for the event ticket or the travel or the $1,000 on, ISA sales tools or whatever. But I always saw this as the long-term game. We did a contest, Derby to the Desert, that we knew there was going to be a big financial cost to. Heidi and Brian won it. They went. We split it with a couple other people. It turned out great. It was awesome. Letting go of certain people, letting certain people's opinions, letting friends kind of just go away if you need to for a while, I would say that would be a risk. And then those are some of the main ones that I see.
I think another one that is hard to do is investing your free time into growth of yourself and your business. And I saw Allison do this a lot in that first year when she was working full time. I was gone at night, and she had little 10-minute pockets during the day, her half-hour lunch, or drive to and from work. And then when the kids were sleeping from 8 p.m. until midnight, when she was alone, she was touching or working on the business in some way, shape, or form, like 6 or 7 days a week, because she had this big goal, this big dream, this big vision, and that's what it was going to take. And it was investing. She wasn't watching E-News. She gave up on Grey's Anatomy, which was hard for me because I was still watching it. So I didn't have my Grey's Anatomy buddy. But those kind of sacrifices that she made because she saw the bigger picture are really hard. And that's one of those slight edge separators too, because, giving up a half hour a night of not watching E-News isn't a big thing, but a half hour a night every night, and Allison is growing and touching this business and growing herself and connecting with people, that really propelled us going forward. So it's those little sacrifices that's really easy to say, oh, I'm just going to take, it's just a half hour. I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
That half hour turns into 45, turns into 2 hours, and you just wasted a large block of time.
Yeah. So, I mean, there aren't, like, that's the cool thing about this. I don't have, like, any major, like, I mean, none of those to me were things that I would regret. So there's a difference. I mean, there's risks and there's regrets, and some people have those in this business. I you know, I mean, there were failures. I will tell you some other ideas of failures.
We got a big list here, so we'll cut it down for you.
I went to Austin, Texas with a gym owner to help another gym owner do some launch parties, and he had 0 people show up at any of the launch parties. So I flew to Austin, stayed, you know, went away from my family for like 3 days, and literally zero things came out of the trip. It was like, okay, we're coming, you know. So I mean, that is where I would go too far for people without qualifying for their time, or like them qualifying for time, and without them, you know, not setting the expectation that we're like inviting a whole bunch of people to be here. And, you know, I've heard other leaders say, like, if you can get, you know, 10 people in the room, 20 people in the room, I will come. I mean, I've had trips where, you know, that stuff did not happen. You know, so that would be an example of that. I would say being the expert, I would say dragging people. I would say another risk is social risk. So just the social, like putting myself out there, like we all have social risk, you know, on those little reach outs. And then another failure that I would say is not presenting to certain people who joined a different network marketing company. And then you learn from that along the way, because you're like, oh, I cannot believe it. They joined that thing and they totally would have loved this, and I didn't touch them. That is like my biggest thing that I try to make sure doesn't happen, but it still has happened more than once. I don't know. Brian, did you want to talk on this one? I don't know if you.
So I've made big mistakes, and it's all from a product of thinking that I knew better than everything I was being taught. So I thought, what's this one person at a time stuff? That's garbage. I'm going to get 150 people in a room, make an amazing presentation to them, and 50 people are going to line up at the end of the night with enrollment forms. And guess what? We tried to do it, and we spent a lot of money. We like rented a hotel space, got catering, made posters and put them around town. Like
it was a Rise the Entrepreneur event.
We were going to have a Rise the Entrepreneur viewing with a presentation to follow, and people were going to sign up, and it was going to go nuts. And we spent like almost $1,000 to put this on. Zilch we got from it. One other thing we did was we spent $1,000 to be like a title sponsor of a Susan G. Komen breast cancer walk. All we did was get a goodie bag and put a really compelling flyer in it that was about Kathy Coover's breast cancer story, but it did nothing in the way of being able to connect individually with people. So we made those mistakes, but I don't blame anyone for being bold. So we did some bold things, and we got burned on a couple things, but I don't regret them, because you've got to go for it sometimes, but just like think everything through, and like Allison's story about traveling, like qualify it. But Heidi's flown to Florida for 0-person launch parties. Like,
yeah, you know, I mean,
what you think you gotta do.
You do what, yeah, I agree. You do what you got to do. And the people who are, you know, you think of and maybe what?
I had fun on those trips.
Yeah.
It wasn't a total failure.
Totally. But I think sometimes people are too nervous. You know, I don't regret going to Austin, Texas on that trip, even though like he's not even at Consultants anymore. Like we, you know, but it was like, oh, this gym owner wants to, and I don't know what, but it's like, who, you know, the people who are going to make it are the people who are getting their hands dirty and, you know, trying things out and failing and testing. You know, the next year our expenses were $26,000. But we made right around $100,000 that year. So you just, yeah, I was with you, Barbie, at the one in Denver. Like we went and we're like, we're coming, you know, like it just totally, yeah. And then we do other trips. Drew and I went to Chicago for our Freedom Tour. And Teresa came out of that. You just never know. How many booths have I done with nothing? And then Holly comes from the golf show. You know, you just never know. Like, you got to just get your hands dirty. And there's no secret, you guys. Everything tonight, I just hope you take that away. There's no secret sauce. You just got to present to people and show people what's available. You never know who is out there looking for what we have.
And to Brian's point, too, if you're not seeing some of those failures, if you would call them, that means you're not taking big enough risks. If you're playing it too safe, it's not going to go where you want it to go. It's okay as long as you learn from that failure. Like Brian said, he doesn't regret doing those things. He learned from them, and and it changed the way he went moving forward, and it's propelled him to where he is today.
Yeah,
And it propelled, Allison for that, going down to Austin. That was a super fun time, being home alone with the kids for 4 days.
And
For 0 people to show up at stuff. But we learned, and it's helped us grow from there. And if you're having those, know that everybody else who's blown this thing up big and really chased their dreams has done that and more.
Done
it's
that
kind of
and
like
more.
a rite of passage.
It's like I needed to get those early wins under my belt by enrolling Shake and Cleanse packs. I'm not even kidding, you guys. I needed that for myself. And so, when my friend Betsy was like, I'll enroll, sure. Why do I have to pay this? And I'd be like, I'll pay it for you because I didn't know it. Like, that's what a disaster I was early on. But I was getting my hands dirty, like that's, and now I know, like I'm never going to do that again, but that's okay. I don't regret any of that. So go do it. Go do the thing. I swear we will see you at the top because you guys are amazing. And if you have other questions, like voice me, call me, whatever. I'm going to post, Jill, I know the Plan app. Maybe I'll do a little tutorial about it.
On that.
And I'm going to post about the Power Hour because Heidi and Brian had a great thing on that.
And I can play around a little bit more with the Plan app. I just when I first started, I was like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. So I'll play around with that for a while. But that the Power Hour would be great.
Yeah, and you'll totally get it. The upper right, add photos, and then just move them around.
Yeah.
You'll totally get it.
Yep.
Yay.
That's
Okay,
fine.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night. Thanks for sticking
Bye.
around.
Thank you.